All right, let's go ahead and get started then. It looks like the flow is stopped. Um, so, welcome everybody. My name is Jim Harrison. I'm a senior client advisor with the Arizona Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Today, I think we have a great webinar planned here. I've spoken to Ryan in the past, and his concepts are outstanding. So, three surefire steps to hire rockstar employees. Hopefully, everybody got the handouts that were sent in advance. Um, if not, please reach out to Sarah and she can get that for you. So what I like to do first is just kind of go through a little bit about the Arizona Manufacturing Extension Partnership in case you haven't worked with us before, just to kind of give you an overview of what we do and why we're here. First, here's our team. Our mission is to make every Arizona manufacturer the most successful business it can be. And we do that with a relatively small team and cover the entire state. So it's a partially federally funded program under the U.S. Department of Commerce and NIST. And here in Arizona, we're actually under the Arizona Commerce Authority. So they have our charter. We work under them operationally, and it's a nice partnership because we're familiar with the state incentives. We can help make great introductions for our clients and help new clients moving to the state. In other states, the MEPs might be under a university or they might be a nonprofit that was set up to basically house the grant. So here you can see there's an MEP in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. We do work across state lines with them on occasion for supplier scouting. For example, if your company is looking for a supplier to do something specific and we can't find somebody here in Arizona for you, we can put it on the national network and they can reach out to all the other MEPs and their clients. And typically we get back a list of potential suppliers, and it works the other way as well. I've had MEPs post things from other states, for example, Oklahoma, looking for a supplier who can produce a certain item. We work with our team here to identify our clients that we work with or that we know of, might be able to help with that. And then we connect them and it could turn out to be new business. And it has in a couple of occasions. So the way we're measured is through surveys. After we do a project with a client, maybe about 6 to 9 months later, you'll get a survey, very brief, web-based, about probably 5 to 10 minutes tops to fill it out. And that comes from NIST, and they're measuring our impact on the economy. So the things that we do they help create jobs? Do they help with cost savings, increase sales? And yes, we do all of the above. These are the numbers from the national level that all get rolled up basically and reported to Congress so that they continue this funding for this program that's really been around for over 30 years. Here are some other things that we're measured on and some of the challenges that our clients say are their top challenges. Cost reduction, always a big one. Our continuous improvement and lean program is very good in helping to accomplish that. Employee recruitment is very hot topic right now, especially for us here in Arizona. I would say that every client that I speak to is trying to hire somebody or has had some challenges of hiring somebody, and we can definitely help with that. So here's some of the areas that we help in. Operationally, continuous improvement and lean, again, it's a big one for us. Staffing is probably one of our most popular services right now. Quality certification, I'm working with 3 different clients right now, just helping them get their ISO certification. And then you can see some of the other things, inventory optimization, shipping services. If you know, being a small business, you don't have that leverage, we can help where you can help join a shipping consortium and save using rates that's typically only the bigger companies get. And then on the business side, R&D tax credits, we can help with that. If you're not taking advantage of that, you probably have an opportunity that's being missed. Utility tax exemption. If you are a manufacturer in Arizona, you can be exempt from your utility taxes. So that's SRP, APS, Tucson Electric Power, or Southwest Gas, those types of things. If you're paying tax, check your bill. If you're paying taxes, you can have it stopped and we can help with that. And you could potentially get up to a refund for up to 48 months going backwards. And that's been some huge refunds for some of our clients. So I encourage you to check your bill and see if you're paying that. Some other things, HR support. If you don't have a big HR department, but you need a little more, we can help with that. That's, cash flow, looking at financials, export tech. We have an award-winning export tech program for if you're looking to expand your business outside the US. So any of these things we can help with. And then one last thing, we were granted some money last year through the CARES Act to help our clients who are struggling through the pandemic, basically to subsidize some of the services that we offer. That program is starting to come to an end. It'll end in June unless we get an extension. So there's still some funds available. I encourage you, if you haven't already and you think you might could use some help, to go to our website and apply for this. It's a very quick application, and then we can see what we can do. Some upcoming events, understanding basic accounting next month, and then keep in mind, we're going to start doing some of our workshops live and in person again. So that'll be nice at our office downtown. Export tech, that'll be getting started. And then what to expect when OSHA knocks on your door. I would imagine that hasn't happened to a lot of people. It has happened to some. Sometimes you get people who make reports or claims. Are you ready for that? What's going to happen? What do you do? Because you're on the spot, you don't know they're coming. So this is a great workshop just to kind of get in your mind and be prepared in case that does happen to you. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ryan. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say today. And again, if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A and we'll get to those.
All right, Jim, thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Jim, if you could stop sharing. Thank you. All right, well, I want to welcome everybody here today and thank you for taking some time out of your day to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to me. What we're going to do for about the next hour and 15 minutes is I'm going to share with you some of the things that we see working really throughout the country, but especially here in Arizona and the Phoenix area when it comes to finding, attracting, and hiring rockstar employees. For most people, that's really what they're looking for. The thing that I almost always hear is, I can't find good people. We can find people, but we can't find the good ones. And so what can we do to find the good people? And how do we get them to apply for our jobs? And ultimately, how do we get to hire them? So that's what we're going to do for the next hour and 15 minutes or so. What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask everybody here that's attending. This is typically something I would do live. So I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy the questions. Make sure you put your questions in the Q&A. We've got a team of people that's going to be helping us manage that, and I will make sure to get your questions answered. If it's something that's very particular to your situation, I may ask you to speak with your advisor about it, and we can figure out how to get that question answered as well. So what I really want to do today is I just want to contribute to everybody on this call and everybody watching the recording. I want to make sure you get some value out of it. I call this a workshop for a reason. You should have gotten a handout. If you did not get a handout, or if you didn't have a chance to print it, what I'd like you to do is just grab a piece of paper, grab a pen. So when we get to that part of the workshop, you're able to participate with us. So other than that, once we get to the end of this, what I'd love to do is just share with you some ways that you may be able to speak with your advisor and find out if you think this might be something you could really use some extra help with, how we can get the MEP involved in supporting you in that. So just real quick about me, my name is Ryan England. I'm the creator of the Core Fit hiring system. And these are just some recent client wins. Now, for some of you, you may not be big enough to think about 50 filled application or 50 filled positions in 90 days. You just want to fill one. 83 applications in 4 days may sound daunting. Like if I had 83 applications, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But these are some of the things that we're seeing in just applying these processes when it comes to recruiting people. I hear this from the job boards a lot. Our application rates are about 6 times the industry average. And I'm actually going to show you the tool that we use today to make that happen. So when we're done, you should see an uptick in application rates. And then finally, when you start hiring better people, you reduce turnover. Reducing turnover by 414% in 12 months is insane, but it's a huge cost saving to the organization as well. So these are some of the outcomes that we get by implementing this. So if you weren't planning on taking notes, I want to encourage you to take notes, because I can promise you there's some real valuable stuff in here that will help you change your business for the better as soon as tomorrow. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to get some feedback from you. If you could throw in the chat, why is finding good people so hard right now? I would just love to hear from you. What are some of the things you're seeing? What are some of the things you're dealing with? Limited labor pool. Definitely, we're going to talk about that one in a little bit. I got some stats on that. I'm not going to talk about unemployment benefits, but I agree with you. It's been a real challenge. Luckily, they are ending soon. And so we're going to see that. Short tenure, yep, lots of turnover. Here are some of the things that I hear. We're just not getting enough applicants. We just don't have enough opportunities. Lack of quality. I think that's something that we're going to have to just deal with as employers from now until forever, because the job boards have made it very easy for people to apply without any indication that they've read your job description. You can't find them. You can't afford them. We just saw that here, wage inflation. It's getting much more difficult to afford people. We can't find the skills. Sometimes we can't get approval to hire more people. As long as our people aren't burning out, we'll give them the overtime because we just don't want to increase headcount for whatever reason. Skills gap, people leaving the industry. The colleges are not preparing people for the workforce. There's a lack of on-the-job training, and computers or manufacturing, robots are replacing people. And so as they see that, they start to look for other career opportunities. So here's a couple of stats that I want to share with you. These are some of the things that we're seeing right now. So 82% of applications come from the job boards. And if you're not familiar with job boards, that's the Indeeds of the world. The top 5 job boards right now in the United States are Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Glassdoor. We typically don't see manufacturers on Glassdoor. So if you're not on Glassdoor already, it's a great opportunity because it is one of the biggest job boards. The unfortunate thing about it is Glassdoor is owned by Indeed. So you're really putting into the same applicant pool, but you really will be expanding your reach. So you get 82% of your applications from the job boards, yet only 1.3% of hires come from those applications. So if you're putting all your efforts towards the job boards, that's one of the reasons that it's very difficult to find good people. Think about it for a second. Who's on the job boards? They're the people that are actively looking for work. They may be unemployed. They may be unhappy. Typically, the quality hires aren't going to come from there. And when you put this together, you're going to see that on average, you'll interview 20 people to make one hire. So that means you may have just done a phone interview. It may mean that you sat down and did an in-person interview, but you'll interview up to 20 people to make one hire. So when you put those numbers together, that's a lot of work just to make that one hire, a lot of applications to filter through, a lot of people to interview just to get that one. Here's another thing that I can't help but mention right now. I'm sure there's no shortage of millennial jokes that we could tell on this webinar right now, but they're here to stay. In 2020, they actually overtook every other generation. They now account for 50% of the workforce. So 1 in 2 people that are working right now are millennials. So if you don't have a system in place, if you don't have a process to attract and retain millennials, it's only going to get harder. 93% of millennials prioritize skill development and training. 93%. So they are looking for organizations that are willing to invest in them, help them career path, train them, give them new skills. Because 86% of them will take a pay cut to work at a place whose mission and values align with their own. So if you got 93% of them want skills development and training, and a full 86% of them will take a pay cut to work with a place that aligns with their mission and values, it can be very difficult to attract millennials and get them to stick around if you are not prioritizing those two things. Here's another stat. More than 70% of job seekers are only passively looking for work. I'd mentioned this earlier. On the job boards are your active job seekers. They're about 3 to 5% of the job market at any given time. But there's a full 70% of people out there that are waiting for an opportunity to come to them. They're not on the job boards. They don't have an updated resume. They're not applying for jobs. They are waiting for something to essentially fall in their lap. And the way they do that is by talking to friends and family, by looking at employers that they dream of working for someday, waiting for those opportunities to show up. And here's something that I want you to keep in mind. The reason that so many people only passively look for work is it is one of life's most stressful events. So you're probably familiar with this list, the top 10 most stressful events that are out there in someone's life. And death of a loved one, relocation, loss of a job, those are all on that list. So is looking for a job. So if you're not making it easier, if you're not putting an effort into reducing the stress it takes to look for a job, it can be very difficult to find good people. Hey, Gretchen, I see you raised your hand there. If you could throw a question in the Q&A or the chat, I'll make sure to get to you on that one. So you may have heard this statement before. And if not, I really want you to let it sink in for a moment, because it is absolutely true. People don't leave jobs. They leave managers. So when we think about the people that are looking for work right now, if I'm a machine operator for employer A, and I'm looking to be a machine operator somewhere else, or I'm in shipping and receiving or packaging or whatever, and I'm looking for that same line of work, I haven't left the job. I'm leaving employer A. And that's really important to understand, because remember, 86% of millennials are looking for values alignment. They're looking for a place where they feel like they belong. That's more important to them than the work they do. So if there's not an effort put into that, making them feel like they belong, sharing with them what it is that makes your company different, hiring is going to continue to be difficult. Now, there are some people out there, we see these applications all the time where they come in, they've had 16 jobs in the last 2 years. They went from being a cashier to changing oil to sweeping a lot. And those people aren't quite sure what they want to do with their life. So those people are changing jobs. They just haven't found the right job for them. But for most people, they're looking for a different employer to work for. And if you're not coming across as a more attractive employer, it's going to be very difficult to get those people. So here's another question for everybody. Throw this in the chat for me if you could. What is your least favorite part of hiring? Or just think of the whole process in general. It's very time consuming, absolutely. Anyone else? Turning people down. Yes. Sorting through the resumes. All right. Here are the things that we hear. Writing job descriptions. Screening applications. That's sorting through everything. Could you imagine getting 83 applications in 4 days and you still have other work to do? It's a lot. It can be a lot. Following up with the applicant. For some reason, job seekers have gotten very complacent with their follow-up. I first learned the term ghosting because I had an employer tell me this, that a bunch of the applicants, the candidates, were ghosting them. So we chase, they don't respond. Keeping it all organized. Imagine 83 applications coming into your inbox over a weekend. How would you know who you talk to and who you need to follow up with? Interviewing. My favorite part of the hiring process is the interview. But for a lot of people, interviewing can feel very daunting, or it can even feel like a waste of time sometimes, especially if you need to hire yesterday. Telling people no, telling them they're not a good fit. Making the final decision. Have you ever been presented with that? You've got 2 or 3 people and they all look good, but there's something different about each one that maybe you don't like or that you do. And so how do you decide who is the person you hire? Negotiating pay. You know, as we see wage inflation, that's something that is going to be an issue. People start walking in and they want $15, $16, $18 an hour, and you're not used to paying that. Do you tell them no and hope that someone comes in and wants less? Or do you figure that part out? Onboarding, training, and doing it over and over and over again. So let's do this. Let's jump into 3 surefire steps to attract and hire rock stars. This is why you guys are here. But I wanted to set it up with some data that we're actually pulling out of the marketplace so that you can leave here going, oh, I'm not crazy. It is hard. It is a challenge for a lot of people. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to tell your story. Now, on the left side here, this is a visual representation of our model in how we help companies attract, hire, and retain great people. And the first step we always want to see employers do is to tell their story. This might be a shift for you, but recruiting really should not belong to the HR department. Recruiting should go to your marketing team. Because when you're attracting people to your company to apply, you want to make sure you're attracting the right ones. And if your company isn't attractive to the right people, hiring is going to continue to be a challenge. So your messaging is important. Your messaging really matters. Companies can reduce turnover by 28% when they invest in branding. This could be a logo, it could be a website, it could be that, but in my world, branding is more of the messaging. How are you talking about your company? How are you talking about your culture? How are you sharing how you treat your team? And you can reduce turnover by almost 1/3 by just investing in branding and getting really clear on that message. I'd also encourage you to have your team help you with this, because job seekers are 3 times more likely to trust an employee about the company. We've all seen those ads on TV or heard them on the radio or seen them online. And we're like, yeah, this is just too good to be true. Clearly, this was written by the marketing department. But when you bring your team in and they help you with employee testimonials and they help you with sharing on social media, job seekers are going to be much more likely to trust it. And 75% of hiring managers state that it's easier to attract someone if they are familiar with the company brand. One of the best things to happen with the internet was it leveled the playing field. So if you were a small business owner, the internet made it so that you could actually compete in a global marketplace. One of the downsides to the internet is it introduced a lot of noise. So if you're a job seeker looking for work, what you're more likely to find is whoever's the loudest, whoever's the biggest, the brightest, the boldest. And in small businesses, it can be a real challenge sometimes to actually compete in that. So if there's no investment in branding, you might not even have a shot because they can't find out who you are. We do a lot of work in the construction industry, and I just found this out from a trade association. They said over 50% of their members don't even have a website. Well, more than 90% of job seekers will actually Google your company before they'll apply for your job. So if you're not easy to find on Google, that can be a real challenge to finding good people. I mentioned this before, be attractive to those you want to attract. Go Google your company sometime. Take a look at it through the eyes of the job seeker. How attractive is it? Would it attract the kind of people that you want to apply for your jobs? Or does it attract the type of people that you've been getting? Really ask that question, dig deep. Remember, 86% want to align to purpose and values. Do you have your purpose somewhere on your careers page or on your website? Do people know why your company exists? What difference do you want to make in the community, in the state, in the world? If they don't understand that purpose, it's really hard to align to it. Next thing is your values. Do you have really well fleshed out values that you actually hold people accountable to? You know, too often I hear values that are integrity and honesty and teamwork. Those are great values. But if I'm a job seeker and I'm like, well, I hope you have integrity. I hope you're holding people accountable to integrity. And I hope you're being honest with me. Those values I really look at as table stakes. So what is it that your company really values and what are you really holding your people accountable to? If that's not available for them to find, it can be a real challenge if they're looking to align to their own personal values and purpose. I said this before, but message through their eyes. How do your employees talk about the work they do? How do they talk about your company? I'm not asking you to go hire some big marketing firm, sit down with the leadership team and come up with this really cool flowery language that will never resonate with your entry-level employees. How do they talk? How do they look at things? Here's a surprising truth for a lot of employers. The review sites, think Yelp, Google, Facebook, they all have reviews on them. Job seekers actually look at those reviews and go, well, wait a minute. If their customers aren't happy, what are the odds I'm going to be happy? So really took a look at your online reputation. That's what job seekers are looking through. So make sure you're messaging through their eyes. Make sure you're looking at your online presence through their eyes. Said this before, but let the employees tell it. Drives me nuts when I see these really large, Fortune 500 companies hire actors to come in and talk about what it's like to work there. And you're clearly actors. They've never turned a wrench in their life. They've never worked in a warehouse in their life. You can tell they're actors. But they talk about this story and what it's like to work there. And then they're frustrated when they can't attract people that actually could do the work. So grab some employees, ask them to talk about it online. You'd be surprised, especially with the millennials, they love any opportunity to get in front of a camera. So grab a phone, record them talking about what it's like to work there and have them share that. And then keep it real. If your company struggles to keep people past 90 days, it's a hiring issue. You made a bad decision, they made a bad decision, or expectations weren't met, promises weren't kept. That's why you lose people in 90 days. Sometimes you're glad to have them leave, sometimes you're not. What I find happens more often than not is the employer comes into the interview, talks about how awesome the company is, what the plans are, where they're going, and they're really selling it to the employee. The employee's like, yeah, I want to hop on this bus. This sounds cool. And then what happens is they get there day one. Onboarding is something like, hey, why don't you go get started? Let me know if you have questions. And there's no more conversation about how cool the company is. It's just grind, 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 grind. And now the job seeker and the employee is sitting there going, this isn't what I signed up for. So be honest, keep it real. We have a client we worked with a while back, very passive aggressive leadership team. It was just something they did. They grew up together, very passive aggressive. They actually had to get to a point where they started putting that out there and letting people know, hey, if you come work here, I just want to let you know, we're a little unhealthy in this area, but we recognize it. Passive aggressiveness is something that is alive and well in our organization. So keep it real. Also rethink video. Mentioned this earlier, get the employees on a testimonial video, get them sharing what it's like to really work there. Because your job applications will increase by 34% when video is included in the job posting. So if you could just take a video of either what you're selling as a company, take a video that talks about your values and your purpose, take a video that's about your open opportunities, grab an employee testimonial video and include it in the job application. You'll actually increase the number of applicants that you'll get. And you'll most likely be very pleasantly surprised that they'll be of higher quality because they'll already feel like they know a little bit about the company. So the first step is to tell your story. The next one is to define your rock stars. And this is something that I think we all know. It's one of those common sense things, but for whatever reason, we don't do it. If you don't know how a rock star behaves or what a good person looks like in their application, if you aren't very clear on that, especially if you have a hiring team, multiple hiring managers, nobody's going to make the same hiring decision. And you could have people coming in and leaving and you not even know that was your future rock star because you've never taken the time to define it. When we meet with employers a lot, we always find that they have this very critical process for scrubbing an application. And they'll look at the resume, and if there's typos on the resume, they'll pass on the application because that's someone who doesn't pay attention to details. But they're hiring them to be an operator. They're hiring them to work in packaging. And while details might be important, whether or not my grammar skills are up to spec or I use a period or the exclamation mark in the right place really shouldn't matter. So until you're really clear on who your rock stars are, you could be just letting them walk right out the door and you not even know. So what I'd like to do is give you my definition of rock star. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but I often hear people define rock stars. And what they tell me is really the definition for a superstar. And if you're really looking for a rock star, you're going to be glad that superstar left. So here's a rock star. They're the rocks of your team. They're reliable. They are not looking to move up. Maybe a little bit, but they're not, if they're not in management now, they're not looking to be managers later. They dream of working in their current job. They want to be excellent at what they do. They are not interested in new roles or responsibility. And the problem is, as hiring managers and as leaders, we often perceive them as lacking ambition. Why wouldn't they want to climb the corporate ladder? That's what I would do. There must be something wrong with them that they don't want to advance their career, make more money, have more responsibility. Because the rock star is focused on stability. They don't like change. They want to be, maybe they're at a point in their career where they're like, I like doing what I do. I go home at the end of the day, I feel fulfilled. I know I'm making a difference in the work that I'm doing. I'm happy with it. And they don't have these dreams of growth. They just want to go to work and this might sound bad, but they want to punch a clock. They want to put in a good day's work. They want to punch a clock. They want to go home and not think about work until they get up the next morning. A real quick side note, personal story. When my wife was in the workforce, her boss just kept tapping her on the shoulder. You would be amazing as a team lead. You would be amazing as a supervisor. You're so great at training people. You get our processes and systems. You get how it works. And I remember having these frustrating conversations with my wife because I'm like, they're offering this to you. Why wouldn't you take it? Here it is, fast forward 10 years later. And I start digging into this rock star, superstar concept. And I go, because my wife's a rock star. She didn't want what superstars want. So let's talk about superstars. They have a steep growth trajectory. They move up or they move on. So typically what happens is we get disappointed when superstars leave because we see all of the opportunity, but we can't move them up fast enough. They want to advance. They want more responsibilities. They're going to change everything, including the world. But they're often perceived as not focused. And that's because their entire focus is on growth. They want the new skills. They want the new training. They want to be given leadership opportunities. They want new responsibilities. And what happens is superstars are awesome at impressing us during the interview. They tell us everything we want to hear. We see somebody that can grow inside the organization, somebody that can do more, faster, better, for cheaper. We get excited. But then we hire a superstar, and on day 3, they're like, hey, boss, I got some ideas on how we can do this better. Like if we change this process this way, and you're like, whoa, 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 it's day 3. I just need you to come in, punch a clock, do a good day's work, punch a clock, and not think about work till the next day. We'll talk about your future. We'll talk about growth opportunities later. They start taking risks and chances, and then before you know it, either they're bored and want to leave because they don't see the opportunity, or we're glad to walk them out the door because they're messing everything up. So if you're not really clear on defining what a rock star is to you, or what a good person is to you, you can run into this trap of being impressed by superstars, hiring in them, and then being disappointed because what you were really looking for were rock stars. So I always like to ask this question: how important is the job description to hiring rock stars? Take any job title you're looking to hire right now, type it into Google, type Phoenix jobs after it, see what comes up. You'll get 99 companies all posting for the same position, all using the same boring job description. Must have reliable transportation, must have a certification, must be able to lift 50 pounds. It's all the same boring job description. Then we're disappointed because we're not getting anything different. But somewhere there's a disconnect, because 72% of employers believe they have clear job descriptions. I don't know about anybody on this call right now, but do you believe that your job description is clear? You know, they know exactly what they're going to do. They know how they're going to be held accountable to do it. And that's pretty much it. Requirements and responsibilities. You got to have these skills. This is what you're going to be doing, and this is how we're going to pay you if you get it. So almost 3 out of 4. Yet half of that number, 36% of applicants agree with this statement. Remember to look at your opportunities, to look at what your company's doing through the job seeker's eyes. Here's another thing that's really interesting, and let me finish talking about this first, but so if your job descriptions aren't super clear, if you're not super clear on who it is you're looking for, you can really cause a lot of challenges in finding good people, because the study shows that men believe they only need to fulfill 60% of a job's requirements. So men go in, they look at the job, and they say, you know what, I can do 60% of it. I'm good. I'm going to apply. So maybe they don't have the skill to work that CNC. Maybe they've never done that before, but that's okay, because that's only like 10% of the job description. I can do the rest of it. And then you're disappointed, like they don't even have the skills we're looking for. And then the other side, sometimes what I see employers do is they exaggerate what they need. They exaggerate what they're looking for. Well, they really only need to be able to lift 30 pounds, but I want to make sure they can lift 30 safely. So I'm going to put 50. Well, how many women just got disqualified? Because when women look at a job's requirements, they think they need to fulfill 100% of them. So how many women could lift 30 safely, but they're not comfortable lifting 50, for example? So unless you get really clear on who it is you're looking for and you tailor those job descriptions that way, you could end up struggling for quite a while to actually find good people. "53% of job seekers want expectations clearly explained in the job description." Now, this isn't the lift 50 pounds. This is, you've got to produce X amount of widgets in a week, or we're going to talk about you finding other opportunities. So how are you holding people accountable? How do you know when your people are productive? How do you know when they're engaged? What measurements are you using in the business to determine this? Spell it out in the job description. Let job seekers know how they're going to be held accountable. And organizations that invest in a strong candidate experience improve their quality of hires by 70%. What's a strong candidate experience? It's one where they know they have expectations on when they're going to hear from you. They know exactly when you're going to follow up, when the decision is going to be made, and they know what's required to do the job. So here's a couple of things about the perfect job description. Perfect job description is engaging. It's not the same 99 jobs that they've seen somewhere else. And most importantly, it's keyword optimized, because if you don't know this, the job boards are search engines. They're just like Google. So if you don't have the right keywords in your job description and you post it up on Indeed, Indeed may never put it in front of the right people because they're searching for a word that isn't in your job description. We see people get very creative with job titles sometimes, but that's not what the job seekers would actually search. So make sure that you are writing it so that the job boards can actually display your jobs to the right people. They describe the work environment, they describe the hiring manager, and they describe who you don't want. Now, I get pushback a lot on this hiring manager one. Well, I don't know who the hiring manager is going to be yet. Or maybe you do know, and you don't want to put that information in a job description. Well, it's a different issue. We do have a different workshop for that. But if you're not proud of your hiring managers and you're not willing to put out there who they are and the type of people that you hire to lead your teams, really question why. 60% of job seekers say it's the #1 thing missing from job descriptions when they look at them online. Why? Because people don't leave jobs. They leave managers. They know what it takes to do the job. They're probably doing it today. What they don't know is what it's like to work for your company. So here's the 4 sections of the perfect job description, and then we're going to get to the worksheet here in a few minutes. So the first part of the job description is the lead-in. Just like any ad that you might post, or just like any ad that you might see, there's always something in the first couple of seconds to grab your attention. There's always something that is going to get the person interested and excited. So they're high impact. They're specific to your company. They screen immediately. So if I read the lead in and I'm going to find out really quick that I'm not the right person for you. Tanya, I got your question here. I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes. All right. So The second part is what you're not looking for. Remember those 99 job ads out there? They're all saying the same thing. They're all looking for the same thing, same skills, same, responsibilities, those kinds of things. But I know what behaviors you're not okay with. I know what traits, what traits you're not okay with. I know what kind of performance you want. And give examples. So here's one real quick. We have a few clients actually that believe this, that early is on time and on time is late. If you're in an organization that if they got to punch the clock at 8 a.m., 8:01, they're getting written up because you really wanted them to punch the clock at 7:55. Put it out there. Let everybody know. Let everybody know that you have ingrained in your culture that early is on time. So if you're the type of person that hits snooze on your alarm clock 27 times, just so you can hope you drag yourself in right at the last second, you're probably not the person we're looking for. Probably not the person we're looking for. What's in it for me? WIIFM. This is something that comes out of the marketing world. Talk about all the time. When someone puts an ad out there, the ad should really speak to the person viewing the ad. It shouldn't be about the company. It should be about why I want to buy from the company. Your job description should be the exact same thing. So you want to make sure that when you're putting this information out there, that you're speaking to them in their language. They want values alignment. Great. Talk about your values. Talk about the vision for the company. Where is it going? Why do you exist? What change do you want to make in the community, in the world? And talk about the hiring manager. The next part is what you want. What do you want from somebody? Not someone that can do the job or has the skills, but what are you looking for? What is a rock star definition to you? What is the right person for you? I often find it's culture alignment. When people tell me they can't find good people, what I hear them saying is I can't find someone who believes what I believe, who will take care of the customer the way I will, who take care of the company the way I will, who will engage with the team the way I will. That's what you're really looking for. That's called culture alignment. Tell them you're looking for rock stars. There's a concept when we talk about grading employees called A players, B players, C players. If you're not familiar with it, A players are your rock stars. They're the ones that you wish you could just clone and you wish you could get rid of B and C players. Your C players are the ones that are disengaged. The only reason you keep them around is because you need a second set of hands, or you need someone to just show up because you need the help, even though you know that it's probably not going to work real well. And your B players, in my opinion, usually what I see is your B players are A players who are spending so much time chasing around the C players, fixing their messes, that they look like B players to you. You want someone that sees the vision. Do you have a 10-year goal for your business? Do you know where it's going? Because when people hop on that bus, they want to make sure that they're excited about the destination. Are you in an industry that's going to start struggling because of outside influential factors? Do you have a plan to overcome that? Share that. And then finally, set expectations. Tell them what it's going to be like in the interview process. Tell them what your onboarding process is like. If you do quarterly conversations, you actually sit down every quarter and you talk to people, let them know. Rockstar employees want to work with rock stars. And if they know that you have a system in place to always hire rock stars, they're going to get a lot more excited about applying. We've all worked on a team before where we had to carry the weight. And we're like, I would just wish other people would carry the weight. And I've never met somebody that has had that experience that would actually say, I want to go join a team where I know I'm going to have to carry the weight. It's not what rock stars are looking for. So set those expectations with them and then finally give examples. Now, Tanya asked a great question here. Is there a difference between a job posting and a job description? And I will actually say the answer is yes. But what happens is too often employers think they're one and the same. They take what HR has put together and then they post that. And they think that it's good enough because, well, that's how we're going to hold people accountable. That's how we're going to be able to tell that they're doing a good job. Now, we actually call them job ads. So the job posting, I want you to think of it as a job ad. It's an advertisement. The stuff that HR and legal and all that stuff that they have, you can share that with the candidate once you're making them the offer. Like, here's all the legal stuff. I do recommend that you take that and you do put it into the job ad, that you do post that online so that you properly set expectations. But too often they end up being one in the same. In fact, there was a study a while back that one of the job boards did that said that job postings that have more than 2,000 words actually convert at a much exponentially higher rate than ones with under like 300 words, which is where most job postings are today. And it's because those ones that have 2,000 words talk about the management team. They talk about the culture. They talk about the organization. Like, what are you going to get when you join our team? Here's another question she asked. What is your opinion about adding the pay to the job posting? Yes. Don't think about it. Add it to the job posting. Because job seekers know the game that employers play when it comes to pay and benefits. And as employers, we never want to overpay somebody for what they're worth, but if we might be okay giving them a little bump. I mean, that causes so many issues on so many different levels, but always put it here. And here's why. You'll get about a third more applications. Because in the job boards, if you're looking for active job seekers, you can actually sort by pay ranges. And job seekers want to know they're not wasting their time. So if you're a company, even if your company doesn't allow you to do it, I would suggest that you fight for it. Always add it. You should be paying what the market's supporting. And if you're not, that could be another challenge. Like somebody mentioned earlier, the unemployment benefits have been a real challenge. Well, if you're paying under $15 an hour, you probably haven't hired too many people in the last year. The market is adjusted, and now the market wants you to be paying entry-level people at $15 an hour. And then your last comment here about companies leaving the pay off of the job posting and asking candidates what the salary they're looking for. There are some states now in the country that that's illegal to do. I don't believe Arizona is one of them, but it is now illegal to ask people what they were making before because it continues to perpetuate any wage disparities between groups of people. And so the idea being, what a good performer is worth to your organization in this role, you pay them accordingly. We don't typically get too involved in pay and figuring out pay because I believe you should figure out what the market is bearing right now, and you should pay that plus a little extra. Because if there is some point where people really are going to leave for $1 more an hour, because when $1 is 8% of your total income, that's a lot of money. At some point in time, when you get into more of the skilled labor, the $25, $30 hour range, if they're leaving for $1 an hour, there's something else at play. But if you're doing entry level, $12, $13, $14 an hour, that extra dollar can mean a lot to their family. All right, so here's our exercise for today. So our one exercise we're going to do today. I want you to write a lead in for your rock star. So I would like to take 5 minutes and do this. I don't expect you to get it fully done, but I want you to get some ideas on paper. so that when you walk out of here, if there's anything else that's inspired you, you'll be able to take that back to the office and say, hey, add this to the top of our job postings. Let's see if we can get some better results by doing this one little thing. So if you don't have the worksheet, if you weren't able to print it out, I've put up the questions here. But what I want you to do is I want you to define your rock star. Describe them. And here are some questions to get you going. Here are some things to think about when it comes to defining your rock star employee. So I always tell people, pick someone in your company that you wish you could clone. We've all got that one person that we're like, oh my gosh, if I just had 10 of them, that would be amazing. Then that's who you want to think about when you're defining your rock star. So I'll give you guys a minute just to do this one, and then we'll move on to the next section. We talked about values alignment. We talked about aligning to purpose. So what is it that your rock star is looking for? What motivates them to perform? Most people are not motivated by money, by the way. Been a ton of studies to show that. Money is a means to an end, and they are motivated by what the money allows them to purchase. So that comes down to, what do they value? A lot of times with the entry-level positions or even the sub $25 an hour positions, we often see that they value time with family. So if you're an organization that is mandating overtime and your turnover is above 100%, or actually if it's above 30%, it should be of concern, then it could be because you're not allowing them to spend their time with family. They're not getting what they value out of working for you. What does the market look like? I had this conversation a few months ago with the client, and they were talking about how every single time they interview somebody, it feels like all they get is bottom feeders. Like, I just cannot find anybody good. I'm like, well, if you're getting bottom feeders, maybe it's time to switch fishing holes. You know, if you're fishing in the city canal, might be a problem. If what you're really looking for, some beautiful trout or salmon or something like that. So we use a lot of fishing analogies in what we do, but if you aren't finding the right people, really look at your market. Are you fishing in the right places? You know, one of my questions on here is, how many other businesses are competing for the same type of employees? If you're paying under $20 an hour in the Phoenix market, you're competing against Amazon. And all you have to do with Amazon right now is apply, and they hire you. They weed you out during the onboarding process. There's no interview. You can pass a background check, fill out the application, the job's yours. Think about your rock stars too. How are you paying them compared to others? Do you need to consider pay and benefit requirements if you want to attract more rockstar employees? And then finally, the last part is to write a job description intro. Write an introduction for them. Do you love only working with other rock stars? Do you like being on teams full of A players? Do you enjoy it when you show up at work and your boss actually invests in you and your future? If you answered yes to these questions, maybe it's a time you keep reading. Learn more about the opportunities that we have for you here. The lead-in doesn't need to be long. You know, too often I see employers write a lead-in. It's like, we have an urgent need for a machine operator. Okay, great. That's all about you. Speak to me as the job seeker. What do I want? What are you going to give me? And that's how you attract people with a lead-in. Are you the kind of person that values family? Do you enjoy making a good wage because you want to take care of your kids? Remember, this is an advertisement. What is it that you're doing to differentiate yourself in the market? Speak to that towards someone who you know would be a great rock star for you. What I'd love for you to do is take 30 seconds. Anybody wants to throw something in the chat? Was there any good ahas or takeaways here? Anything that you said, wow, I'm going to go do that. Because I think that would help our chances. Love for you to share in the chat with me. Or if you have any questions about the lead-in, go ahead and throw those in the Q&A as well. I'm going to go real quick through this one. This is not one of my steps, but I always get asked about it. Does it really work? I'll give you some stats. 91% of employers use social media to hire talent. So something must be working because everybody's on board. Yet only 14% of hires found their current role through social media. So everybody's doing it, which means it's creating a lot of noise. It's very hard to stand out. And so job seekers have a lot to filter through. But if you are going to do it, find your target market and go there. Think about your rock star. Do they play video games in their downtime? Then maybe you should be advertising on Twitch instead of Twitter. Do they like to be a part of political conversations? If so, maybe Twitter is a good place to be posting. Just think about who your target market is and make sure you're using those platforms for social media. But I will tell you that for all of our clients, social media, we don't even really talk about it. It's important to have a presence there. Make sure you've got a good Facebook page. Make sure you're on the big three. But other than that, I don't find that they work really well because there's so much noise. Joan, thanks for posting that. Joan said that switching perspective from what we need to what the candidate wants was a big aha in writing better job postings. Thank you for that. Finally, interview for fit. So the best interview process is open and transparent. It's objective and measurable. I see employers put so much effort, so much money behind advertising to get all of these applications come in. They screen them, they go through the whole process, they bring them in, they spend 15 minutes with them, and they hire them right there on the spot. And then they're mad because the person that showed up for that 15-minute conversation isn't the same person that showed up 40 hours a week for the last month. There was no effort whatsoever to get to know the person, to understand their behaviors. We never had an open and honest conversation with them. And there was never an effort to make sure that it was an objective interview process. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, well, I hired them because they came in wearing a jersey, my favorite sports team. So we had that in common. Or, oh, I found out that we go camping at the same lake. How does that translate into a good employee? I haven't figured it out yet. So make sure it's objective and measurable. And this will create a trusting environment. It'll create honest feedback, and it will set proper expectations. So here's 3 principles for incredible interviews. Always set expectations. Time, purpose, and outcomes. We just had a client email me last week. Their old interview process was about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They spent 2.5 hours with this person, and then they took them to dinner to make the offer. Now, it was a skilled labor position, so I get that it might be a little different. But the idea being, they spent 2.5 hours with this person before they made them the offer. So if you're going to spend 60 minutes with somebody, or even if you're still going to stick with 15 minutes, make sure you're very clear on the time. Make sure they're very clear on the purpose. And then on the outcomes, what the next steps are going to look like. Share with them the overall process. Thank you for applying. We're going to screen it. It's going to take us 3 or 4 days. Then we're going to give you a phone screen. That might take a week to schedule. It'll probably be 60 days before you get the job. Just tell people that. And then discuss unmet expectations. Think about the last person you were excited to see leave. What was it about them that you were excited to see go? You bring that up. Hey, you know, we've had a lot of people that have come here and they didn't meet our expectations because of X, Y, and Z. I just want to make sure that we don't repeat that. Have a plan. This is probably the easiest thing you can do for better interviewing, is to have a plan. Ask everybody the same interview questions. There's nothing worse than introducing bias into an interview because you're just winging the questions. Make sure that you've got measurable results. Make sure you're measuring the interview process so that you're able to accurately compare one candidate to the next. If one of the things you don't like is getting to those top 3 candidates and you can't make a decision, imagine if they all had a score on them, whether it's A through F, it's 1 to 100, 1 to 5, doesn't matter. Just make sure you're getting measurable results and that your process is objective. All hiring managers are taking everybody through the same interview process every time. Focus on behavior versus skills. I always tell people, interview for the things that you can't or aren't willing to teach. There are some things we can't teach people, and there's some things we aren't going to be willing to teach people. I have yet to meet an employer that says, I'm willing to teach somebody how to get to the job on time. Just not going to teach them that. They need to be responsible adult and get to the job site on time. But I have met a lot of people saying, hey, I'm willing to teach them how to use our software or how to operate our equipment. Remember, if you've got women in the workplace and they are actively applying for your jobs, and you put in there, must be able to use our software, which may not be the most popular one in the industry. If they see that on the job post and they can't do it, they're going to be less likely to apply. So what are the things you're willing to teach? Interview for authenticity. Here's one of the easiest things you can do for this. Remember, interview, looking for a job, one of life's most stressful events. We often interview people and then we're disappointed because the person I interviewed is not the person that showed up for work. It's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment sometimes. And as employers, we get frustrated because they weren't authentic. They weren't being open and honest with us. And then I often ask the question, how authentic were you being? Psychology, there's this law of the mirror. People mirror people once they're in rapport. So if you're being open and honest, it's much more likely someone else will be open and honest. So make sure that you're being authentic during your interviews. Discover if there's a cultural fit. We've talked about culture fit a lot. That's very important to millennials. And then if necessary, review the skills. We've seen employers get some of their best hires from someone who had none of the skills, but all the right behaviors. And they learned the stuff faster than anybody. They were more productive than anybody else on the team. All right, here's a real quick question. I'm going to answer it. What is the best place to advertise as I currently use Indeed? So the answer to that question is probably not what you want to hear, but the best place to advertise is where your rock stars are hanging out. So if you know that you have a history of hiring people that are currently unemployed or active job seekers and it's just not working out, but every time you get an employee referral, you're just like, gosh, I wish I could do that more. Put more of your efforts into employee referrals and don't bother with advertising on the job boards. If you find that Indeed works, but you also suspect that ZipRecruiter or Glassdoor or LinkedIn might have job seekers for you, you can definitely advertise on the other job boards. But if you're not on an applicant tracking system, that's probably one of the easiest ways to get your jobs out there more. We're not going to talk about that in this, but it's software that helps you with the recruiting process. And I think every organization should have one. So what impact does constant communication have on hiring rock stars? Here's the unfortunate truth, fortunate truth about rock stars. Most rock stars know they're good. There's a little bit of an ego there. That also means they know that they're going to find a job. So if you're not having constant communication with them, it's likely they're going to get picked up by someone else. So improve the experience. 81% of job seekers say continuous communication would greatly improve the overall experience. And 83% of candidates want employers to provide a clear timeline of the hiring process. Put it in your job posting if you can. You are competing against everyone. So when someone makes the decision to start applying for work, they're going to apply for 20 jobs on average in the first week. After that, they're going to do once a week. And what we suspect is causing this is they've gotten enough opportunities in those 20 jobs that they're going to get picked up. So the average dropping, a lot of people have already left looking for work. So that's why the average drops so fast. And the average time for an employer to contact someone is 6.28 days. This is across all industries. Here's the thing. If you're not treating applications from job seekers the same way you would treat a customer lead, that one shift alone, just thinking about applications as though it was a customer lead, could really revolutionize the way you hire. Because if you're waiting 6.28 days, imagine what would happen if you got to them in 15 minutes. And you were the only one they were talking to while everybody else was waiting 5 days to get to them. You definitely have a better pool of applicants. So is there anything you can do to keep candidates engaged during the process? So 89% of candidates drop out or are lost because the hiring process takes too long. The average time it takes to hire someone in the United States is 29 days. We have some clients that have committed to doing it in less than 3, getting through the whole process. And they're not struggling nearly as much as the people that take a long time. So I want to talk to you for a moment about onboarding rock stars, because if they leave in the first 90 days or in the first couple of weeks, or this was all for nothing. Like, we just keep spinning our wheels and doing it over and over and over again. So only 12% of employees strongly agree that their organization does a great job onboarding new employees. And this is an average. Employee turnover can be as much as 50% in the first 18 months of employment. I know there's some of you on this right now going, oh, I would kill for 18 months to lose half the people. But this is for all industries, all jobs. But turnover can be a problem. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but we have a process we call the 2-4-12 launch. It's a 90-day onboarding program that is measurable and employee-led. It creates a great experience, it creates engaged employees, and it improves productivity. I hear all the time, well, I don't have time to onboard them. I would argue that you don't have time not to. So in the first 2 weeks, this is going to sound silly, but treat them like a rock star. If you work for one of those companies or you own one of those companies that throws a celebration when someone retires or leaves, but you don't throw a celebration when someone new shows up, that might be part of the reason you're not able to keep people long-term. So celebrate them, treat them like a rock star. Let them know that you're excited to have them there. Engage with them. Ask for feedback on your interview process, on your hiring process. What could you have done better? What were the things they really liked? That way you can start promoting that in the future. Ask them for feedback. Now, we're not asking for superstar feedback. Like if you just changed all your processes, we could change the world, but ask them for some very specific feedback about the process. In the first 4 weeks, define the role for them. If you're making a decision about whether or not a new hire is a quality hire in the first couple of weeks, you haven't given enough time to actually show up and be themselves. Remember, they just went through one of life's most stressful events. And the argument I sometimes hear is, well, these guys, they have 10, 12 jobs a year. Well, that might be part of the problem too. Like if they're numb to it, they may not be as engaged as quickly. But remember, this is a stressful time for them. They're taking a leap to see if the grass is greener over here. And so make sure that you spend the time onboarding them, getting to know them, define their role, share with them how their performance is measured, give them objectives, and then provide two-way feedback on the overall process. Ask for their feedback and you give feedback. Finally, discuss any unmet expectations on either side. And in the first 12 weeks, develop ownership. Help them to really own their role. Help them to own the results that they're producing. Embrace their failures. Most job seekers, most people that you're going to hire aren't going to be able to do it your way the first time. As long as they're learning from their mistakes and learning from their failures, this is someone that could engage with you a long time. And spend time in that first 12 weeks giving them a foundation for success. Really invest in them early on so that they know you'll continue to do it. Help them to create results, celebrate the wins with them. And then finally, at the end of the 12 weeks, let them set the goals. There's nothing worse than a manager coming in and saying, okay, here's your goals for the next quarter. And the employer looking at the manager and go, that's not possible. It doesn't matter if we don't hit those numbers, then we're going to have problems. You've really got to have buy-in from people if you want them to perform. So here's the 3 steps again. Tell your story. Make sure people know who you are, why you do what you do. Share your values, your vision for the company. Take the time to define your rock star. Be really clear on who it is that you want. Be even more clear on who it is that you don't want. And then finally, interview for fit. Make sure that you're interviewing the people objectively, authentically, so that you know you've got the right people joining your team. And above all else, remember to treat them like the rock star that they are. Don't ignore that fact. It's very important to celebrate new team members. So what I'd like you to do is 1 minute, identify one opportunity for improving your hiring results. Something that stood out to you. I would love for you to share it in the chat. We'll also have a couple of minutes here. We can do a quick Q&A if anybody has any questions. Okay, so what's next? I really see that there's a couple of opportunities. One, you could bounce out of this workshop and say, this guy's crazy. There's no way this stuff's going to work. I'm not doing it. I really hope that's not what happens, but I get it. Sometimes this stuff is so disruptive to the way your business has been hiring in the past. It can be a real challenge to get it in there. But if you think that there's an opportunity to explore more about changing your hiring process, What I want you to do is speak with your advisor at the Arizona MEP. Go to your senior advisor and say, wow, that was a great workshop. I want to know more. What can we do to really improve our hiring processes? And then finally, I've written a book that I'd love for you to have a digital copy of. If you go to this bit.ly link, you'll be able to get a free PDF download of our book on how to hire the ones you won't want to fire. It's a deep dive into the interview process, how to create a process-based interview that's objective and measurable. I'd love you to have a free copy of that as well. All right, that is my presentation today. I don't see any questions coming in, but I'll hang out for another couple of minutes if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask.
Thank you, Ryan. That's fantastic information. Very refreshing. I love to see a process put around things from my days in operations, and to see a process like this that is buttoned up, wrapped around, the hiring process is extremely refreshing.
Thank you.
Sarah also wanted me to mention that I believe, Ryan, you'll be doing an in-office or an in-house workshop in July. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's the end of July.
July 28th, I believe. I don't think it's on our website yet for registration, but anybody who's interested in meeting Ryan in person, coming down to our office at the ACA and engaging in a little bit more depth, I believe that's going to be a 3-hour. Please keep an eye out on our website or reach out to your advisor, and they can let you know when that is ready for registration. I don't see any other questions coming up. Anybody have any other final questions for Ryan? If you think of something after, please feel free to reach out to me or your advisor. If you're not sure who your advisor is, you can still reach out to me or Sarah. We'll get you the answers that you need, but I really appreciate everybody's participation. I appreciate you, Ryan. This is fantastic information.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Very passionate about it. And for those of you thinking about the July event, we're going to dig deep into the interview process. So as you know, that's one of my favorite parts. So we're going to help you put together an objective interview process during that workshop.
Fantastic. All right. With that, I'll let everybody go, and everybody have a great rest of your day and a safe and fun holiday weekend coming up.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ryan. Great job.
Yes, awesome job. Awesome job.
Thank you.